group of powerful figures in Hollywood, as well as powerful politicians who are in fact not human. They're reptiles or they're lizards, perhaps extraterrestrial.
I don't think it is a human. I think it's a Sasquatch.
You know, every time I speak, I want the truth to come out.
If you're a true experiencer or a true abductee, you have what's called high strangeness. All these weird, bizarre paranormal things start to happen. Almost like your house is either being haunted or nobody really knows. Wow, that thing's weird.
Go ahead and run. Run home and cry to mama.
Let's get weird.
All right. So today on the show we have Gina. She's a paranormal investigator out of South Florida. How you doing, Gina?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Not a problem. It's my pleasure. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I love all things spooky. I'm a big horror movie fan. I love scary stories. I'm an artist and I paint and I draw. And I've been, following the paranormal for a very long time. I can say, I want to say back in the early 2000s, I was, started going on ghost hunts and ghost tours. And then a couple years ago, I got my own ghost hunting equipment, different things for, going on paranormal investigations. So I've been doing those ever since on my own.
Okay. And have you ever had any experiences before you started investigating?
I always, kind of heard stories and I've had certain little things happen, but I've never seen anything personally. I never had a profound experience, with, seeing a full bodied apparition. I know a lot of people have said that, as a child, maybe they had seen something. I've always kind of experienced the goosebumps and the feeling as if something is around. Growing up in Coral Springs, Florida, my parents, their house had some funky activity to it. But mostly it was just kind of like, we would hear things, or there might be, something kind of out of place or something moved, but no one ever really saw anything necessarily. And that activity was kind of strange because they're still in that house. They've been in that house since 1997. And when my brother and I moved out, a lot of that activity stopped. So it might have been kind of centered around us being there, or us maybe not liking having us around. I'm not sure, but to this day, they really haven't had too much activity in their house. So.
And tell me about your the first time you went investigating.
Okay. I went on a tour, and this was in Key West back in 2004, 2005. And the reason why I kind of want to count this is because I got some excellent evidence, and I was able to experience a lot of things and with a group of people that also experienced them. So there was some, validation there of I'm not crazy and this is actually happening. Basically, my friends and I had gone down to the Florida Keys, and we drove down to Key West. And if you've heard anything about Key West, it is a very old city, and there are a lot of different ghost stories surrounding that city, a lot of different things. And we went on a tour. So we went on this walking tour, and at the time I had one of those little disposable cameras, and the tour guide said, while you're walking around, you should take some pictures, because a lot of people capture orbs and different spirits in their photographs around here. So, being it was the end of the day and we were heading home anyway, I, kind of finished up my camera roll on this tour. And one of the stops on the tour was a It was a boarded up building. And at this time, I want to say it was summertime. It was probably June, July. And, so the weather was warm, but it wasn't in the evening, it kind of cools down a little bit. And the tour guide asked us to stand next to this building, and he walked across the street and he said, just stand here for a minute and tell me if you feel or see anything. And I immediately felt this dry heat coming out of the building. It felt like a heater was behind us. And my friends also kind of experienced this. We were looking around trying to see where it was coming from, because from what we could see, the building was not occupied in any way. It was all boarded up. And so then he came back and he asked us if we felt anything, and we told him what we felt. And he explained to us that that building had burned down several times. And every time they rebuilt it and they made it something new, and then it would burn down. And finally, I guess the last thing it was a nightclub in the 90s, Club Chameleon. And at that point, after the last time it caught fire, they just abandoned it. So that was kind of interesting for me, and that kind of got me excited. And then towards, the end of this tour, I was taking a lot of pictures, especially there's a cemetery next to a church. And when I developed those photos, I was able to capture in many of them these glowing orbs, and a lot of them had facial features in them. Some would have eyes, some would have a nose and a mouth, some would have a mouth and eyes. And it was just absolutely wild. And one of my girlfriends that I was with also captured similar photos on her camera. So it became something that it was so interesting, because there was other people with me that were experiencing these things, and we had something tangible that really sort of got me excited in the paranormal. And since then, I've gone on many different investigations around the United States and abroad.
You went into that first investigation as like skeptic, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really expecting much. I just thought it was just kind of, going to be a history tour, and I didn't have any high expectations for it. I certainly didn't think I was going to get as much photo evidence as I did. I probably had a good 5 or 6 photos that, and what was funny about it too is I went back with the negatives to a different pharmacy. It was like CVS or Walgreens or something. And I had them print them again, thinking, okay, maybe there's something wrong with my pictures. Or maybe when they printed it, there was something, spots on the printer. I mean, I was just trying to debunk it. And they were, those orbs were on the negatives. So they were something that I captured on my camera. For me, it sort of became that point where I decided, all right, I really want to do more of this, and I'm interested in it. And, since then I've gotten real equipment and actually know how to use a lot of it, and I'm still learning. But now I'm capturing voices, and I've got some ghosts on camera, and, different pictures that I found, and, combing through my photographs, and it's an exciting kind of thing. It's like an Easter egg hunt,
Right. I think that's the most fun part, is the of how exciting it can be to find when you find something, for sure.
Absolutely.
But so since you went into this first time being skeptical, did you ever think that the reason that he left you there was to try and set something up for you to experience?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly why he walked across the street. I think he wanted us to just kind of, have, maybe a little less context on things. And we had asked a couple other people that were not with our group that were on this tour, and they said they didn't feel anything. So, I guess some people can experience things and some people might experience it in a different way. But I always try to approach investigations with those skeptical ideas. Maybe this can be debunked, because, if you run into a situation and you just assume that everything you capture is legit, I mean, you're not really doing anybody a service there, because, there's been so many times where, you can debunk something as being headlights, creating shadows, or maybe somebody was talking at the time when you were recording. And, there's so many other factors. And if you don't account for all those things, then you're going to get false evidence. And I'd rather have the real thing, and be skeptical about everything. And then when I do find something, then that's kind of a treasure to me, you know?
Yeah, I get that. I totally get that. So after the first time, what did you investigate after the first one?
Well, just kind of around Florida, I went up to St. Augustine and I did there was like a guided paranormal investigation. So they had their own equipment that you could use. So I sort of got my first taste of using these, EMF detector and, different things like that. And from there, I just I would always seek out haunted places. And no matter where I went, I would do a little research and see what's in the city that I'm going to. I do a lot of traveling, or something that's close by that I can check out. And I've always just had this, I always feel drawn to these places and I want to, explore them. So from there, I did St. Augustine, which is very haunted. There's the fort, and then there's an old jail there, and there's several cemeteries. I have some family in upstate New York, so I did a little exploring up there. And they live in a historic town, so I got to check out some older homes and cemeteries when I was up there. I've been, kind of up and down the East Coast to a few different places, especially New England. New England is just filled with really cool places to check out and explore. And I've also done a little bit in Japan as well, little ghost hunting.
So I was actually on your Instagram yesterday, on your page, and I saw all the places that you went to, and I clicked on Japan, and I remember listening to, it was either a podcast or just a video about the Japanese culture and about how they have these statues.
Yes.
And there was a headless one, or something or other. I can't remember the name. The names escape me. There was three of them that were supposedly demon entities. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I remember we talked before, and you were telling me about Japan, and you had about your trip there, and there was a statue that you talked about.
Yes. When I was there, I had a really interesting experience in the mountain town of Kamakura. Kamakura is like a day trip away from Tokyo. You can get there by train. And I was interested in checking this place out because they have this really cool Buddha statue that you can climb to. It's on the top of a mountain and it's huge. And so that was sort of the draw to that place. But what was interesting about there, when you get there, you have to climb up this mountain, and every so often there's shrines. There's shrines all over the place. It's a very holy city. And so I got up, you go to a shrine, you check it out. Each shrine is a little different. Each shrine has different deities and, things that they're honoring. And, they kind of honor everybody over there. They have all different spirits and guides and things. So one of them was, I'm going to call it the Devil Shrine, for lack of a better word, because it was in Japanese and I'm not exactly sure which demon it was. But there was like a devil style shrine there. And so I was hiking up to it, and I felt perfectly fine all day. I stay hydrated, especially when I'm hiking. Of course, that's 101. And I just, as soon as I climbed up to the very top of this little summit, and I was approaching the shrine, I just felt so sick to my stomach. I felt so overwhelmingly, like it just felt like something hit me. And I had to stop and I had to just drink water. And I couldn't even really go inside this place. I just felt this overwhelming sickness. And as soon as we walked away and I got a little ways away, I felt fine. It was like something washed over me. And then as quickly as it washed over me, it was gone. And I didn't feel bad for the rest of the day. So it was kind of, an interesting, I couldn't really explain it. And there were absolutely, when you're walking up to this shrine, they have these huge, scary looking statues and leading up to the main gate. And I couldn't even get to the steps of this place. I was just immediately, as soon as it was in sight, I felt so sick. You know, and I'm sure, you know, some people might say there's explanations for that. Maybe I just wasn't feeling well. Maybe I needed more water, you know, this and that. But it was just odd because I was feeling fine all day and I was feeling fine as soon as I left. So was it paranormal? Maybe.
Could have been.
Yeah.
Were you by yourself or?
I was with my husband. Yeah. So I usually travel there. The reason for going, he used to live in Japan and he worked in Japan. And, you know, over the years, he's been doing business over there. So before the pandemic, we would go just about every summer and spend several weeks there at a time, you know, while he was doing his business. And, you know, it kind of became like vacation slash business.
Right.
So for me, it was just a vacation.
Did he feel anything when you were started experiencing?
No, he did not. And he's also a huge skeptic too. But it was
Is he?
odd because, you know, as soon as we got there, I felt it. And as soon as we left, it was gone. And I was completely fine.
Huh.
It's just a little weird.
That is weird. I feel like that happens a lot in relationships. There's always one that's like, I don't know about that. And the other one's like, oh yeah, for sure. That was definitely a ghost. And the other one's like, no, I think you're fucking with me.
Yeah, you know, I mean, what's nice about him is he's very supportive, and he's actually like an audio engineer. He's very good with, you know, he's got all his computer programs and stuff for that, and he will look through videos with me, and he'll help me find EVPs, and he'll, you know, and he'll help debunk something if he doesn't think something's real. And he said to me, you know, basically, it's not really my cup of tea, but you know what, if I really want to see something to prove to me that it's real. And he's willing to come with me to these places, and he's willing to go on some investigations, because he would like to be proved wrong, you know, and
Right.
and I think that's great. You know, it's a good attitude to have. So
That is good. Now, the amount of time that you spent in Japan, did you ever visit the suicide forest?
yes, so I kind of went around the outskirts of it. I didn't go hiking deep into this forest. So basically, it sits at the base of Mount Fuji, and I've frequented this area many times over the years. It's a beautiful, beautiful area. You know, just at the base of the mountain, you can find all these really cool little villages, and you know, there's some interesting sights to see. And so I have been. I kind of, you know, when I did go there, I was a little apprehensive about getting too far into the forest, just because all the stories you hear. And, you know, we talked about the movie that came out. Obviously, it's a cheesy movie, but you know, it is a little spooky. So we kind of like went along the outskirts of it, and we actually visited nearby. There's some interesting caves. You know, they have these you know, interesting caves you can check out, and there's crystallized sections of them. So we went into that, but it definitely has a very scary vibe when you're there. It really just feels different. And the whole area is wooded. You know, the whole area surrounding that is all forest. And it really is scary, because when you get to that particular section, it's almost like it's very quiet, almost too quiet.
Right.
You know, you would hear normal sounds of bugs and birds and different things. It just is very silent there. And it gives you a chill, is the best way I could describe it.
Wow, that's creepy. I've always been interested in traveling, let alone traveling there. Japan has always kind of interested me. I don't know much about the culture, but I like we talked about the movie that movie last time.
Yeah.
And I was super intrigued by the actual place. And I've always wanted to maybe, because I know I hear that people do camp out there in there.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah,
come out fine.
yeah. And it's a common thing that people actually have. From what I understand, there's color-coded flags that you can put on your tent that basically means I'm okay, or I'm thinking about it, or, you know, do not disturb. kind of things.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, so
That's creepy. That's
it
even
is.
creepier, I feel like. Um, so have you had any negative experiences?
Yes. Recently, I did have a negative experience a couple months ago. And so basically, to give a little context, a little background on what I was doing, I was with a small group of people and a local paranormal investigation team. And they host these events at various places, and one of them is a village of historic homes in the city of Fort Lauderdale, which Fort Lauderdale is just a little bit north of Miami. And this little village is centered around the New River. The only original building on this property is the New River Hotel, and then they had moved other homes that were prominent from various people that settled the town, and they moved all these homes and other properties to that area to preserve them. And during this investigation, we had access to several buildings, the hotel, there was a couple of houses, and an old school. And in one of the homes, it's called the King Cromartie House. This house was home to two different families. It started out as the King family, and then when one of his daughters got married, the house was given to her as a wedding gift. And there's been several members of that family in and out of the home. So it is said to be haunted. There are lots of different stories out there about one of the Cromartie women is said to be, she can be seen in the second story looking out the windows. There's also a little girl who passed away there from yellow fever, and there is a male. And I've been to this location a couple of times, and I've never directly come into contact with the male. We've had various things going on with the others, but never him. And we don't really know exactly who he is because he doesn't really want to reveal that to anyone. So basically, what we were doing, a small group of people, we were doing some EVPs, and one of the investigators decided, hey, let's go into the bathroom because for whatever reason, he felt that, maybe he can get some EVPs in there. So we all kind of crowded into this little bathroom, and we were doing the EVP session, and he asked me if I would like to do a spirit box session. So in the spirit box session, I was given a pair of noise canceling headphones and a blindfold. And my headphones were plugged into what's called a spirit box. And the spirit box basically sweeps back and forth between radio stations, and it's kind of like a wash of white noise. And the idea behind this is a spirit can speak through the white noise, and you'll hear, words come through the white noise. And those words are kind of going across several different stations, which is kind of an anomaly. So that's, where people get the, have the consensus that is a spirit talking to you. So during the session, I can't hear the questions from the interviewer. I am just hear, the white noise in my headphones, and I've got a blindfold on. So I can't see what people are saying, and I can't hear what they're saying. So they essentially are interviewing the ghost, and I'm just speaking what I hear. And in the session, it started out, kind of average. We got to get out. You need to leave kind of thing, which is really common. But the voice that I was hearing was the same voice over and over, and it was a male. And the voice started to get very agitated at one point, and it said something about witch. It said something, get the witch. And there was a girl in this team who was a witch. She's a white witch. She's not anything negative. It's just her, pagan religion. So I want to preface that as she's, not anything scary. But she was there, and she's a healer, and it kind of called her out. And then right shortly afterwards, it was saying it wanted to kill her, which kind of freaked me out. And at this point, I was feeling kind of uneasy. I had been touched on my arm. I wasn't scratched, but I could feel basically this whole part of my arm, just this little section, was ice cold. And the other people in the room I pointed to my arm, and they were able to document on camera that my arm, just this one little section of it, was just the hair was standing straight up, and it felt cold to the touch, and nothing else. It's 80 degrees in this house. It's Florida, and there's no air conditioning on. So why the heck is my arm, so cold? But after it started saying it wanted to kill the witch, I instantly felt this negative energy, and I had to stop the session. So we ended up stopping the session, and we did a couple more, smaller, EVP sessions, and it said a couple times it didn't like the witch. So it knew that she was a witch, and it did not like her there, and it said it wanted to kill her. So,
Wow.
yeah, it wasn't a great situation.
No.
So,
I feel like I would have ran.
I mean, I was just really interested. I just wanted to, I wanted to know more. So.
Right. I mean, that's worse than anything I've ever experienced. Mostly anything, I haven't really gotten any negative, have any negative experiences. It's more like, it scared the shit out of me and I just left more kind of thing. Like I've never been physically touched, but, now her being a witch, she practices, like,
And she practices magic, and she works with crystals and herbs, and she observes pagan holidays.
Right.
Sweetest girl in the world. Nothing to be scared of.
Right. Do you compare that to like what I guess would be like a shaman or like a healer kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's
Because you're
what I
working
thought.
with crystal energies, and you're working with what's called white magic, and that's a very peaceful practice. So, but to someone who might have been around in the late 1800s, or that's an abomination. Nobody was a witch, and I guess I don't know how it picked up on that, because we weren't talking about it or anything. She didn't have any symbols or anything that anybody would know, other than we knew that because we know her.
Right.
So but it was a little scary.
Now, this was Florida, you said, right?
Yes.
Right. Does Florida have a history of like witch hunting or anything like that?
Not that I know of. The thing is with Florida is, there's certain pockets that are older, developed areas. But Florida, for the most part, really wasn't a highly developed state until like the 60s and the 70s. We had Key West, which that was popular, and it was, there was a population of people there because it's kind of like a port city, and for trading purposes and things of that nature. There was a couple of pockets for farming, but really, Central and South Florida wasn't very developed, until recently. So there's not as many, I want to say, as many haunted locations, perhaps is a good way to put it. There are certainly places, but like for example, if you're in New England, you can you can't throw a rock and not hit a building that's haunted in New England.
I being from New England, I will 100% contest to that.
Yeah.
So
it's common to have a house that's 100 years old or more, and that's normal. So
yeah, the house that I live in right now, this house, it's almost 100 years old. It's very
that's
close.
so cool.
And my buddy Anthony, he also has a podcast, but it's nothing like this. He's like wicked sensitive, and he's very astrological, and he's very intuitive to a lot of things. And the first time he came to my house, he's like, it feels weird in here. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, he's like, I don't know, you need to get some plants or something in here. So now my house is full of plants. Just because I know, like, we grew up together, so I know, like, what he means, and when he says stuff, he's like, it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
So, which I've had two experiences in this house since I bought it.
Really? Do you think it's the same spirit?
Both of them were different. Um, so they were both upstairs in my bedroom. Well, one was in the hallway, and I could see somebody standing there, and it felt like not dark, but not light either.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It was more like it wasn't sure what it wanted, kind of thing.
Okay.
And I couldn't really tell that I couldn't see it. I just knew it was there, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I just pulled up my blanket to my eyes, and I stared out into the hallway, and I was like, I'm just gonna roll over. And then the other time, this was the first time. So I was just laying in my bed. It was probably 6 o'clock in the morning, and I had just woken up, and I was just laying there thinking about getting up. I was like, oh, I gotta get up, get coffee. My dog's laying there, and she picks her head up, and she looks over me at like she's watching somebody walk into the room, and then I just feel pressure, like somebody sat on my bed
Oh my
by my
God.
feet, and I was just like,
I would freak out.
what? And like went to turn, and then all of a sudden I had this like sensation, and like the image of my uncle popped into my head, because my uncle passed away 3 years ago.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Do
So,
you think that
and
was your uncle reaching out to you?
that's what I felt like. Yeah, I felt like he was there, because at the time I was going through a breakup and all this stuff, and I had just, like, it was pretty recent to me buying the house too when this happened.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, no, we were really close, and I always just kind of like I don't know, like try to equate where I am in my life as a person to him. Like, am I like, because he's always been what I thought a man should be,
Mm-hmm.
and I always try and think, would he be proud and stuff like that. And like, even when he was alive, I would ask myself that. So
Mm-hmm.
we were pretty close, and he was pretty close with all of us, all of his nieces and nephews. So I don't think there wasn't one person that came across his path that he didn't touch in some kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, I'm sure that was him then just giving you some comfort when he felt like you really needed it.
that was my takeaway for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So it was probably the most physical
Mm-hmm.
experience
Because
that
the
I
bed.
had with
Yeah.
paranormal. For
That's
sure.
so cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, I called my buddy Anthony, and I cried a little bit after that. I was like, I still didn't want to move once I knew, like, had the image that it was possibly him.
Yeah.
I still laid there for a good 20 minutes, half hour. I didn't, without moving, like a scared, not moving, but like I wasn't scared though.
No, I understand what you mean. And it's also, when you're not expecting something like that to happen, it can be paralyzing.
Mm-hmm.
It can be it's that fight or flight, kind of thing. And sometimes, some people just immediately feel like they need to run, and some people freeze up, and some people, it's a natural response to a paranormal situation. And I think that it's, once you realize that it was something that, a family member coming to visit you and not a scary entity that meant you harm, then, it feels more comforting. But it's still scary as hell if you know that you're in the room alone and you feel somebody lay in bed next to you. I mean,
Right.
I don't blame you at all. But that's really cool that, he came back and, felt the need to be there for you in that moment. That's a very powerful thing that I'm sure most people wish they could experience.
Yeah, for sure. Since we're on the subject of New England and witches, you have been to Salem.
Yes. I was in Salem actually last summer, and So I did a whole New England trip. You know, we went all the way up the coast, and it was great. And of course, I had to go to Salem. It was still pandemic time, so things were still a little bit weird. But I did get a chance to go to the infamous witch house, the Corbin house, and that's that big spooky black house that you see in a lot of movies and such. And basically, it's the last standing building in Salem that is directly connected to the Salem witch trials. So it was Jonathan Corwin's house. He was one of the judges. And when I spoke with the docent there, you know, we weren't allowed to take any pictures or videos inside the building, which I have a lot of respect for it. I get that, and I would never, you know, go against something like that. So respectfully, I did not film anything in there. However, I did use my EMF detector. But when I was there, I asked this docent, and I said, you know, so everything is, you know, legit from that time. And she said the only thing that really has changed is the windows, the window glass. They've had to replace that over the years, but everything else from the floor to the roof is all original. So we got a chance to walk around the house, and it wasn't that many people in there at all. It was my husband and I want to say there was maybe a group of 3 other people, but they were kind of downstairs when we were upstairs, and we sort of swapped when they swapped. So we had the space to ourselves pretty much. So I was using my EMF detector in this home, and I was able to pick up some interesting readings in the back bedroom, which he shared with his wife. And I also picked up some interesting readings in the center. I want to say I guess you can call it like a living room area. There was a main fireplace and a large table, and which is probably the space where the families would share their meals. And in this room, my EMF detector was going crazy, which, you know, it is a historical building, and they do not have electricity there whatsoever. In fact, that whole portion of the block does not have any electricity because it's a protected space. So for my detector to be going off that way was very odd, because there was nothing there that I could say, you know, to debunk that. There was nothing in there that was no lights, and there was no air conditioning. There was nothing on in there. So that was really interesting. And I definitely got, you know, a very heavy feeling in that space. And it just, throughout the whole house, it just felt heavy, and it didn't feel good at all, really. And, you know, that's not really as surprising, considering how dark and evil that man was, and how he pretty much was very prominent in those trials, and his decision making sent a lot of innocent people to their deaths. So, you know, does that house still hold on to that residual energy? Most likely. It was a really dark time, and I think that what I was feeling in that home was definitely a dark presence, for sure.
Did you happen to visit the Salem Inn while you were there too?
No, I didn't. We did the Hawthorne Hotel, and we also did the what's it called? The memorial section of the cemetery, which is the old burying point, and that's that main cemetery there. Yeah. And I actually captured, I didn't even know that I captured this, but I captured a really scary EVP. I was walking through the cemetery, and I, of course, take out my EMF detector, and I'm, you know, kind of checking this place out. And another place too, there's no electricity anywhere. And I was able to confirm that with 2 different docents. And my detector was going nuts. So I started filming it, and I was just kind of filming it to prove that, you know, there's something going on here. Mm-hmm. And in this video, I didn't even realize this. One of my friends actually pointed out that he found an EVP while I was walking through the cemetery. This is actually like something I just found out. And in this EVP, electronic voice phenomena, you can hear clearly a man say, "I'll escort you." Like an old timey thing to say. And that cemetery is filled with American Revolutionary War people, right, and Civil War people. And, you know, that just sounds like something a gentleman would say to a lady that he saw walking around a cemetery. And, you know, I still have to get around, so I have to isolate this video and kind of edit it to make it a little bit clearer to post it. But it's there, and there was nobody around talking. And certainly my husband's not going to say, "I'll escort you," because that's a weird thing to say. So, can't deny it. Salem is absolutely haunted. It is a really spooky place.
Yeah, I hear it gets crazy on Halloween.
Yeah, I would not want to be there.
Yeah, I was thinking of either doing a podcast or just doing like a video, maybe like interviewing somebody at the
Yeah.
Salem Inn. So the Salem Inn supposedly has one room that's super haunted.
Mhm.
Room 17. It's room 17 in the basement is
Okay.
haunted. And so my ex-wife used to work there, and her brother used to work there as the night maintenance manager. And he would tell me all the time about walking through the basement at night, and it was like this family was having a tea party at the table in the basement, and he would
Wow.
he would say something, and then he would say like, "You can't be down here." Well, the first time he was like, "You can't be down here," and then he turned to flip this light on, and they were gone.
That's so scary.
Yeah, because the only light that was down there was like lights from the boiler and stuff like that, so you can
Yeah.
see like where you're going and stuff. Like you can see outlines and you can make stuff out. But it wasn't. He turned around, turned the light on, turned around,
That's amazing.
and they were gone.
So
So
that's like a holy grail capture,
yeah,
seeing something like that. I'm so jealous. I know
yeah,
I'll get there one day, but
yeah. You may be, and it would be great if you caught it on video.
I know, I know, I know.
I saw the picture you posted. It looked like a guy and a girl, a man and a woman in a
Yes.
cemetery, was it?
That is the Huguenot Cemetery in St. Augustine. And that was a funny situation because I was up there for a bachelorette party. Of course, suggestions were made on what to do, and nobody wanted to go to a bar. So I said, why don't we do a walking ghost tour? And everybody agreed. So we did. And we were walking around and the perimeter of the cemetery. And I just snapped a bunch of pictures, and I've sort of heard different theories of things, but a lot of people suggest that if you take a picture, don't just take one, take a burst of them, like 2 or 3. So that way, if you capture something in one and not the other, or you might capture something manifesting itself in one and then a full body apparition in the second, and then it's gone in the third, that is, it's more substantial evidence than just the one picture, because then you can say, oh, it's just a lens flare, or it's just, something, a light, or, whatever you want to say it is. But in this particular case, I was just taking pictures the whole time we were walking around, and I was, looking through my pictures, which I love to do. And I kind of like pinch and zoom and just, look throughout the whole thing. And I saw what appeared to me to be a man. The man is clearer than the woman. The man it looks like he's wearing a top hat. He's kind of like a portly guy. He's got a beard and what appears to be like kind of ruffly shirt and a coat. And you can even see his nose and his, the facial hair.
Yeah.
The woman that's standing next to him is much less visible. She's a little bit more hazy, a little bit more foggy, but she looks like she's wearing an old-timey bonnet and perhaps like a really little dress. I would say maybe Victorian era. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
And then, so you see them in one picture, and in the very next picture, which was taken like a second apart, they're not there anymore. And I love that capture. That was so fun. And I was showing all the girls at the bachelorette party, and they were, oh my God, did that really happen? Like, yeah, that's why you guys bring me along on these things,
I saw the picture. So you posted them side by side where you can't see anything, and then the other one that you can. It did look like he was just kind of like standing there, like he's very like square shouldered, and he's just like debonair kind of looking.
But they're both turned in the same direction. It's almost like they're looking to see like who's over there,
Right.
And I mean it was spooky, and then it's not there, and I took other pictures in that cemetery too, and there's nothing else in any of them. So
wow, luck of the draw.
Right.
For sure. the veil just lifted on that quick second and you got it.
I
That's
got it.
awesome. So why do you think that a lot of sightings are like Victorian era or like old timey kind of
That
thing?
is
Because that's a lot of the stories that you hear.
That's a great question. And I know there's a lot of theories of thought on that, but I just, I'm not sure if it's maybe they've been gone so long that they're more comfortable in whatever spirit realm they are in. And maybe they've learned how to manifest themselves a little bit better, having time to learn how to do that. But I mean, there are certainly hauntings that are recent. You just don't hear about them as often.
Right.
When it comes to buildings, why are certain buildings more haunted than others? There's a theory that, quartz and limestone are conductors of energy, and a lot of old homes and foundations of buildings were built on quartz and limestone, which are said to, hold on to that energy, and they also conduct the energy. So when it comes to haunted homes, that may be a factor of why you see, in older homes, more hauntings. But these people I saw, they were in a cemetery. So I can't really say for sure, other than maybe a baby ghost, someone who's been dead for a year is not going to be able to manifest themselves yet. I don't know.
Right.
Just my own personal experience growing up in this home that my parents, we moved there in 1997. And that house was built in the 80s. So really, you'd say to yourself, well, it's probably not haunted. Maybe there might've been a family or two before us. But the back of that house was definitely retrofitted, to be probably a space for someone who was elderly. There was handicap rails put into the restroom. We found a dialysis kit in the closet. There was evidence that maybe somebody was living there that was, an elderly person. And the theory of that house was this spirit that was living there was that person, and they just didn't want to leave. And, and that certainly would have been, something that was more recent. But I mean, it's definitely what you hear about more is these older hauntings and these spirits that are from, a long time ago. And I don't know, I think we're all still learning about this, and there's definitely being, more and more evidence is coming out these days, and more people are creating equipment to capture these things, and our technology is getting so much better. But I mean, at the end of the day, we still don't really know anything. And that's kind of one of the biggest reasons why I do what I do, because I look at this as if it's the next frontier of science. We've been to the moon, our medical practices are excellent at this point, but we don't know what happens when we die. And there's so much evidence out there, it's hard to say that it's not true. And why is it that some people stick around and some people don't? There's just so many factors that make it so interesting and exciting. And it really feels to me like it's a new frontier. And being able to be a part of that is the coolest thing ever.
Nice. So do you think that ghosts and spirits, could they possibly be interdimensional, or do you think they are 100% people who have passed?
I've had this conversation. It's funny that you bring this up with one of my close friends just the other day. And there are a lot of, ideas out there and theories. I think a really good theory might be that, some people are able to tap into their psychic abilities, maybe a little bit more than others. That's why we're seeing more of this. Maybe they're really there. Everybody's there just, in another dimension, and some people can see it and some people don't. Maybe some spirits, for whatever reason, don't want to move on to that next plane. Maybe some spirits can travel back and forth between that plane. I mean, I'm just not sure. But, there is something to be said about, our brains, only working at so much of a capacity. And there's such a large amount of our brain that are not really being used to potential. And, some people can tap into that sixth sense, and they can, you see about psychics all the time solving murders and solving crimes. They're able to locate people in a state that they've never been to, and they can describe to law enforcement exactly where those people are. And that's a real tangible thing. And I think a lot of it is people's ability to kind of tap into that. So maybe, at some point over time, we'll develop more of that ability. I don't know, but it's an interesting thing to debate. And, it's interesting how there's so many different theories on the subject. I had a friend who was just talking about there's another dimension and we're not actually seeing ghosts at all. It's just people in this other dimension, this other timeline. And we're just tapping into it somehow, or we're kind of bumping into it. And that's why we're hearing and seeing things. But it's really just another dimension, another timeline of people. And I don't know, man. Who's to say?
Yeah, I was just talking to this woman last night. She we were talking and we were both like, what I wonder if it was like just we happened to be crossing paths in another time. Just like what you said. And we were like going into depth about what we thought and maybe what could be. I think, me personally, I think it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of all of it, in my opinion. Just because you can see, like, investigators like yourself and talk to somebody specific.
Oh yeah.
Who has passed, and they get feedback.
You get intelligent responses to questions.
Right.
And, people, skeptics say to me, oh, you're a paranormal investigator. Well, either you or someone you're with has all those things recorded previously, and then they're just playing it, while you're investigating. It's not real voices. And my response to that is, hey, if you're asking a really obscure question that's very specific, not are you here or when did you die? But, I was talking to the spirit of a dead teacher, and he was telling me what kind of car he drove, who was the president when he was alive, what his favorite subject was. Really specific questions that nobody in that room could have pre-recorded, because who would know that I was going to ask the guy what his favorite car was, or what car did you drive, when you passed away, what were you driving? And it's just, how do you prepare for that? And the answer is you don't. You're getting those things, and it's compelling.
It's very interesting. Now, have you ever had any positive experiences?
Yeah, I would say, as far as I was talking a little bit earlier about the Fort Lauderdale village, and there's a little girl there, and the team that I was with, one of the nights we were there, she was caught giggling, like she was like kind of being playful. And this little girl is like, she was a cherub. She was so beautiful, this cute little blonde haired girl, just cute as can be. And, there's so many sightings and reports of this little girl in this space, and also surrounding the space. But we were able to capture her laughing, and it was so cute. And she just, we were asking her, is it okay that we're here? Do you want to play with us? And then, you're going to get responses on your meters. And it's almost like she's playing with our equipment. But to capture that giggle was so cute. And, it was nice. It felt good. And I know that that team that I've gone with, they've investigated there many times. And, it doesn't appear to be that she's sad or she's upset in any way. She's just kind of playing games. And, and when people see her, the reports of people seeing her, it's always she's sitting on the sidewalk and she's playing with a ball, or she's kind of playfully running around the yard. And, it just always seems like she's having a good time. So that energy felt really good. And, it was an interesting capture for sure. Very clear EVP of laughter.
Nice. That sounds fun. All right. Last question.
Okay.
Do you believe in Bigfoot?
You know what? I've seen so many different shows about this, and I actually visited, there's a cryptozoology museum in Maine. And why I really, really recommend going to this, even, skeptics alike. What's cool about this place is there's so much evidence on the topic. They have casts of the various footprints from all around the world. You can see photos of, different scientific excavations of areas where they found things. And it was eye-opening to me because I was kind of thought it was BS, you know, and I'm looking at this in front of me and you're seeing the huge size of these prints, and it's hard to wrap your mind around that it could be faked, you know. And another thing too that I recently I read this book by Lorraine Warren. I don't know if you're familiar with the Warrens and Lorraine Warren.
The Conjuring movies and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was reading this book, and basically in this book, it was short accounts of various investigations that she had gone on. And one of the investigations, believe it or not, was on a Bigfoot sighting. And she went to the location and she feels that she saw one and that she connected telepathically with this creature. And it basically said, like, I don't want to be found. And it left, and she kind of stood there and didn't know what to say or what to do, but she claims to have seen one. And I mean, it's hard to say, because on the other hand, there's, you know, a lot of the skeptics will say, well, how come you never found a skeleton? How come you never found this? How come you never found that? And I don't know the answer to that, but there is so much evidence out there of people capturing it on dash cams of their vehicles, of footage of various security cameras that capture this. And it's not like someone's out there necessarily with a camera filming it. It's just caught by accident. And I mean, it's a very compelling topic. And I would like to think that I'm open to believing it. I don't know if I have enough background information or enough evidence to really make a concise decision on that. But I would say that there is a lot of evidence that points to that there are. And a little side story while we're on this topic, real quick. Years ago when I was in high school, I was driving with some friends, and we're driving, it was about dusk, you know, it was like just starting to get dark. And the three of us were in the front seat of a pickup truck. So I was because I was the smallest, I was in the middle. And then I had two friends on either side of us. And we witnessed what looked like a man on all fours run across the road. And this is kind of like a desolate road. There's a long canal waterway system on the right. And then there's, you know, some homes off to the other side of the road, but there's not really a lot out there. And the thing is, you know, we tried to say, is that a dog? Is that a coyote? What the heck could that have been? But its head was not dog-like. It didn't have a snout. It didn't have ears. It looked like a man, but a really big man running on all fours and fast. You know, like if I got on all fours and I started running around my living room right now, I'm going to be awkward about it. I'm not going to be able to do it fast, let alone run across a friggin' road.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. So another weird thing that I can't debunk. So.
Wow, that's a good story. That would have creeped me out, and I probably would have tried to chase it at the same time.
We did kind of like turn around and look around, but I kind of felt a little freaked out. The one guy in the passenger seat really wanted to just leave and not have anything to do with it. So my friend who was driving just kind of like, you know, looked around a little bit, but we didn't really see anything. So we ended up leaving. Yeah. And, you know, one of them suggested, oh, should we call the cops? Is this like a scary man or something? And I said, believe us, if we call high school kids, we saw a Bigfoot run across the road. Oh, okay. You know, are you guys smoking something? Like, no, I don't believe you.
Right. They would not have believed you. Was he wearing clothes? Did he have clothes on?
That's a good question. We're not really sure. Because it was kind of dark, and because the distance between where he was and the car, it was hard to tell. But all I can say is he was dark. So either he was wearing dark clothing, or maybe he had darker skin and he was naked. I'm not really sure. It was so fast, but it was clear that it looked like a man on his hands and feet, like galloping across the road.
He must have been moving pretty fast.
Yeah. I mean, we were probably driving about maybe 40 miles an hour, and it ran, booked it across the road.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, but I can't really, I mean, I don't know for sure if it was a Bigfoot or if it was just a deranged man. It could have been a deranged man. I mean, in Florida, we're known for like the people that take all the drugs and do all the weird stuff. So maybe it could have been.
Well, I mean, when they refer to people doing stupid things, they say, "Was he a Florida man?"
Yeah, Florida man or Florida woman, of course.
Yeah. I hear a lot of stories coming out of Florida.
Oh yeah.
That are pretty fun.
Yeah. There's never a dull day in Florida.
I can imagine. All right, Gina, you want to tell them where they can find you?
Yes. So I am on Instagram at She Haunts and also on TikTok at She Haunts.
Are you on YouTube yet? Or are you trying to be?
I'm kind of toying with that, and I before I do it, I don't want to half-ass it. So I'm kind of taking my time and everything I need to get together, but it will eventually happen. So that'll be coming soon.
Awesome. I can't wait.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording and I'm going to talk to you for a minute after.